Hey everybody, it's Casual Boobs coming at you with another video, and today we're going to be covering the Object 780, which is a brand new tier 10 tank that you can only get from the, what's it called? You can, the assembly line, assembly something or other. Anyways, I covered that whole thing in a previous video, the most previous video, if you want to go check out what that is. But anyways, unless you've been living under a rock, you know that this thing exists and is out there, and if you've played anything close to tier 10s, that's all you've been seeing is these stupid things. So I figured I'm probably a little bit late to the party, but I'll give you my take real quick on what the tank is, what it's like, what it's da-da-da-da-da. But the gist of it is, it's okay. It's all right. It's fine. There are some people out there that love this thing, some people that hate it. I haven't quite made up my mind because I've had some things about it that have been really great, and I've had a lot of really frustrating games too. And I have pros and cons and so on and so forth. So basically, it's middle of the road. It plays a lot like a 277. You know what, I'm just going to save everybody time. I'm going to get into the details. I'll show some replays and I'll talk about stats and stuff. But right away, these are the pros and cons I had written down, right? So it's got good alpha damage. It's got good final accuracy. The shell velocity is great. The base view range is very nice, and it's got pretty decent gun depression for a Soviet heavy tank, right? A lot of them don't have, mostly they have like 5 or 6. I mean, so 7 is nice. It's not like you're working ridges like a tier like 10 or 15 or whatever, but 7 is better than 6 by definition. The bad stuff, the speed is not great. Even with field mods, it's and that is also to do with the fact that the ground resistances are very bad. So even though it should get to 50, you throw a turbo on there with the improved slot, and then you get your all the different field mods and stuff, and you're like, God, it's gonna go 55. It's not gonna go 55. The crew layout is very annoying. I hate when they do this crap, and the premium penetration is not catastrophically bad, but it's not great. It's 311, which is meh. As far as the armor, the turret armor is fairly solid. It's got a cupola, but if you wiggle around and you make use, you don't show people the cupola, then the turret's pretty solid. The bad is that the hull armor is shit, and especially, oh my god, the fuel tank is right behind the lower plate. Holy shit. I have been set on fire so many times in this thing. I have put modified configuration on it, and I've still been lit on fire. I put the purple modified configuration on there, and I still got lit on fire. Anyways. So this is the 5-second version. If this is all you want to know, you can skip now to the end to the replay if you want to see that. But basically, we're going to get into the stats, and I'll talk about these things a little more with numbers attached to them right now. Okay, so as far as the numbers, we talked about the alpha is pretty good, right? So a lot of tier 10 heavy tanks will hit for like 490-ish. That's like middle of the road, 440, 490. So the 780 hits for 530, which is by definition better, right? It's what is that? Almost 10% better. So that's nice, right? And then the final accuracy, see if we can zip down here, the final accuracy is 0.34 versus the 277's 0.36. I'm comparing it to a 277 because they play, in a lot of ways, they're very similar. Both tanks have really good turrets. Both tanks have, kind of mediocre hull armor. And so because of that, they kind of play a similar type role, except crucially, now we're going to get down, I'll get down to the bad stuff, but the speed is the big difference. Right, the shell velocity is really nice. It's not that different than the 277, right? The 1000 versus 13, it's literally 100 meters per second faster. The premium shell velocity is even nicer. I will say that's a thing. The base view range, good stuff. Base view range is 410, which is very nice, especially on a heavy tank. I don't think I've ever seen a heavy tank with this good of base view range ever. Normally they cap out at 400, so that's very nice. Especially given the weird crew layout, this eases the pain of not being able to get your crew skills the way they want to be, the way you want them to be. Let me see here. So the gun depression, of course, is 7, like you already mentioned. The bad stuff. Okay, speed, mobility. So the 277 caps out at 55, and this thing caps out at 45, right? You can raise that. You can get that up to 55 with the field mods, and then also the turbo and the improved slot and all that stuff. But crucially, the ground resistances, if you compare the ground resistances on normal terrain, this is 25% slower. On hard terrain, 25% slower. On medium terrain, which is most of the game is done at medium terrain, right? It's 6.6 worse, which is huge, right? Going from 1 to 1.05 to 1.63 is a massive difference. So the tank does not feel peppy. Right, and then your soft terrain resistance, if you're like the Valley of Lakeville, for some reason you're taking that tank there, 1.8 versus 2.4. The long story short here is this tank is way slower. It does not feel as quick as it should. Let me see here. So there's somewhere in here there's effective. No, this is effective traverse. Effective top speed, right? 45, 39, 26, as opposed to 55, 55. So what this tells you is most of the time your 277 is going to get up to 55 on normal terrain. It might take a little bit to get there, but this isn't even going to get there unless you do things about that, right? You do, make a mobility build or whatever. But I've done that, and it's still not that awesome. You're only getting into 39, right? And that's not, maybe you have a hill or something helping you, but it takes a while to get there, and it still doesn't get very fast. So it's people complain about the Super Conqueror because it's too slow. Well, this is the same speed, so don't let it fool you. Like, it's just not that fast. And the ground resistances are bad. I will say, if you have a decent crew, I compared the two. I went into a training room with a friend, Pax. Hello, thanks for your help. We compared 780s, one person, identical situations where you had a decent crew with brothers in arms and like off-road driving, right? And all of the things are equal. Everything is equal except I had he had a turbo and I had the grousers, and we did a race across the field on steps, and it was dead even the entire way except for like the very, very end. So like, and then he pulled like a half tank length after we ran across the entire map. So the long story short here is, because the ground resistances are so terrible, reducing the ground resistances with grousers makes just as big of a difference as it does when you add a turbo to things, because WTF. So that's a big deal. The crew layout, if you don't already know about this, the crew layout is a 3-man crew, which is unique. There's no other heavy. Oh, is the IS-3A? I was gonna say there's no other heavy tanks that have this. There it is. The IS-3A. It's time to shine. It's finally here. The moment the IS-3A crew has been waiting for. You could take your IS-3A crew and drop it straight in, because that fits perfectly. However, most people do not train a crew specifically for their IS-3A, so probably what you're going to do is you're going to take a commander from one of your other tanks that has, and then there are some that have, some tier 10s that have radio operator duties on the commander, and I don't remember exactly which one. Like maybe it's it's one of the 4-man crews probably, so like an IS-4 maybe? Yeah, you take an IS-4 commander, you're probably your IS-4 crew. And you drop that in there, and you won't have the loader. You won't have any of the loader skills, so no intuition for you and no safe stowage and whatever. But like, at least you'll have your view range, which is nice because that'll buff the, 410 is the base. So then, by increasing it by a percentage, because the base is so good, that makes more of an impact. So having 410, I didn't have a problem with view range in this thing at all. I'll just say it like that. But the crew layout is very annoying. And then the premium penetration we've already mentioned is 311, which again, it's not bad. That is usable, but, and the shell velocity is nice. But like, what do you do against a Type 5? Piss off. That's what you do. Like, you go to the side or flank or something, right? Like, all right, Type 5 paired with 780 shooting premium 3D model. Oh. Well, apparently you don't fuck off. Apparently you're total. On second thought, actually 311 is totally fine. If you can't pen with 311, then you shouldn't be penning at all. I'm going on record. I'm saying it right now. So that's a thing. Premium penetration, no longer a bad thing. That's fine. It's not 340 heat rounds or 350 heat rounds, but it's okay. That's solid. Okay, so that's like the high and low points of the stats. The hit points were buffed just before it was released. So that's a thing. It used to have really low hit points, but now it's the same as every other thing, so it's fine. So now I'm going to switch. Let's see here. We'll go to the armor. I'll show you some of that action. So the turret is fairly okay, right? Depending on what shooting at you. This, 325 next to the mantlet is not a weak spot. This tiny little mantlet, but next to the mantlet does thin out a little bit, and you can see it there. If we get shot by like something with really good penetration, you'll see what I'm talking about. 2A shooting heat, so you got your 330 heat rounds. This is what that looks like, right? So it's a little bit weak around the mantlet, but it's still not bad, right? And it's got more than one cupola, but again, this one's very small, and this one's a little bit bigger, but also it's not that big, right? This is not easy to hit, especially if it's using any gun depression at all. all of a sudden it's harder to hit and harder to hit and so on. But you'll notice also the lower plate is very high, right? This is a very well angled upper plate, and so that brings the lower plate up higher. So, and you'll see this in the replay, if you try to use your gun depression, it's very, very easy to expose that lower plate since your upper plate is the beak is so high. So this is something to be aware of. The turret, but otherwise the turret is fairly solid, right? The hull is shit. So this lower plate is not awesome. It is trollish, right? The trollish armor, it's all angly, relies on angles and so on. So when you're looking straight at somebody, they can pen your lower plate, especially if they tap 2, right? But if they don't, and you can do the things, and maybe you'll bounce things because of angly stuff, but you absolutely cannot ever side scrape in this, because this is what happens. This is right here. This is what happens. So this hull, if you look at the like visual model, it looks like there's tracks and it's solid and whatever, and it's like square. But really, if you pay attention to this, what it really is this is like a beak. It's like these little things are part of the hull. This is like a shoulder plate. So this is actually exactly like the Liberté, right? The tier 8 French heavy tank, where it's got those shoulders on the hull, where as soon as you turn, it flattens out the shoulders. Same exact thing is happening here. So if you go live and you try to side scrape on a corner, you're flattening out your side, right? You're doing one of these. Even if you can try very hard to angle it pretty well, right? But as soon as and this is because it's because it's APCR, this is not helping. Versus, let's just say versus itself, because you're going to see a lot of these things out there, especially if you're playing tier 10. You're going to see yourself a lot. So this is what it looks like, but also that's not easy. Like, it's so easy. This is like perfect, but it's so easy to over angle just a little bit, and then you flatten this out and it's 220. So you side scrape and you die. The side armor is crap, which is as it should be, and you're thinking, oh, I'll reverse side scrape because I have a huge brain. And so you do one of these and you say, all right, I'm going to do this. No, you won't, because even if you do it perfectly, and again, that's very hard to do, because if you do it too much, you show your actual engine. If you do it too much the other way, you flatten out this back hull. But even if you do everything perfectly, the back side of this little fighting compartment beak thing, whatever part of the hull, flattens out you this big square of awesome of 60 millimeters. So what I'm trying to say here, the long story short, is the hull is crap, and the only time you can ever afford to bounce anything is if you're looking straight at them, and then you wiggle and troll and do some of this stuff and hope they can't aim. That's the only time you're ever going to bounce anything. I really did not care for the thing, and again, the fuel tanks are located directly behind the lower plate, so that will segue us into equipment and consumables and so on and so forth. So equipment is, without a doubt, you must be running modified configuration. Modified configuration is required. Normally, like Wargaming in their little video said, oh, run the modified configuration, it'll be really great. A lot of times their recommendations are really stupid, like when they tell you to run ammo net on your grill, but this is not stupid. This is required. You must do that, and even then, if you have the pink one or the purple one, this is a good candidate because you are going to need it, because every time someone shoots through your lower plate, your fuel tanks are going to get damaged and you're going to light on fire. So this is required. From there are lots of options. For instance, I personally liked having, obviously rammer is kind of a requirement because that's what this game is. But at the same time, from there you could do like I had a mobility build where you did the field mods or field mods are this, and this, and this, and this is debatable, right? And this one is obviously always the answer, +4 to top speed. This is super terribly balanced because this is the straight up better one. And that one. So if you do this and you're going mobility, then yeah, then you could go like Browsers in the improved slot and then like a pink turbo. That would be great. This is faster, right? This is 20 power to weight and 54 yada yada yada, but this is still not like, even with all this work, you're still getting to be just about as fast as a 277 is all the time. So I don't think the mobility build is really worth it. So what I started to do is kind of lean into the fact that it's not that fast, and you just have to, you're kind of a glorified tank destroyer in the way that you have to kind of just leverage the gun, right? So then I did rammer and rammer and either vertical stabilizer. If you want to play closer, You want to do vertical stabilizer because you're going to be the turret traverse. This when you're sitting still, the traverse is very good, right? You're moving your hull. If you're moving your turret only, the reticle does not move hardly at all. It's great. But if you're moving or you're rotating the hull, which if that kind of happens a lot, if you're juking or brawling or trying to work a ridge or whatever, you plan on doing that and playing a little bit closer and being in like the knife fights, then you might want the vertical stabilizer to keep the gun quieter. If you're planning on playing a little further back, then I think that probably the best call then is to use this instead. So you're going to have worse dispersion factors, but your final accuracy is going to be very good. So those are the two kinds of things that I would probably lean towards. And again, I would not take off modified config ever, because you will burn to death and wonder what you're doing with your life. Why am I here? What is happening to me? Why am I playing this game? Modified configuration is required. That's it. Without further ado, we'll get into the game. Okay, so we're going to be watching Lord Fowl playing his 277, and pay attention to the fact that he's got a pink turbo, he's got a pink rammer, and then a pink vents, right? So this is a pretty interesting setup. I wouldn't necessarily recommend this, but you're going to see the benefits, the pluses, the minuses here. Pay attention again to the fact that he has a pink turbo on this thing, and look at, like, it's not fast. You're certainly not fast. The STB1 is outpacing you. I mean, it's hard to tell exactly because there's just so many different 780s in the game. But we're on Siegfried Line. It's a tier 10 only game, and there's no artillery, and there's just like 780s all over the place because this is like the day after it got released, or maybe the day it got released. So everybody's playing their new tank, and so this is, I actually hate playing in these situations because it's impossible to get a normal, like, everybody's trying to fight over the same positions, and I hate it. But here we are, and we're going to go to this very normal kind of standard position on Siegfried Line to just, you know, use our hull down position here. And look at the gun is, you see, he almost missed that one because he moved at the last second, and like the gun, like when you're moving the turret, it stays pretty tight, but when you're moving the hull, it's not so great. And this guy is trying to move up to use his gun depression, and Lord Fowl has had a really good shot there. He's using food, and he's got the aim enhancing stuff. And so that's part of the reason he was able to land that shot. But you're seeing here, this guy is trying really, really hard to hide his cupola, and good for him, but he doesn't realize he's tipped up far enough that you can get the lower plate. And there's not much lower plate, but this thing's gun is pretty well behaved. So here we are, we're gonna look at it again, and there's the lower plate again, right? Because it's so high. But you notice that everybody is trying to hit Lord Fowl's lower plate, or cupola as well. So the key is to just, you know, keep moving. Don't let people, like, if you're pre-aiming, if they are pre-aiming the corner that you're poking, then don't poke. And like he's pre-aiming this corner, these guys should never be poking this, right? But this is, again, everybody, they basically just sold a tier 10. So you could have just started playing the game and plugged the credit card into the screen and then got yourself a 780. Which is a terrible business model, but here we are. So now everybody's got one of these things, and they're sitting perfectly still, and Lord Fowl is demonstrating again. He doesn't have any standard rounds, but also it doesn't carry that many rounds, and there's not really a good reason not to shoot premium, right? Why would you not? Who cares? It's like there's just straight up better. But you can see, look at, like, when Lord Fowl is just getting the chance to sit here and aim, he's got the opportunity, he can hit these weak spots, like, yeah, all right, we're gonna hit this guy's kind of this side of his upper plate because you have a sliver of it. So the one thing it is pretty remarkable is for a heavy tank, the gun is pretty solid. And yeah, we're just kind of waiting and like it's the thing about Siegfried Line is you don't want to push in too far too fast because it's very easy to get, oh, and we had a shot, we missed it. It's very easy to overextend, right? So Lord Fowl is doing the right call here, I think, which is to just kind of play conservative, just stay here and farm some damage while there's damage to be farmed. And notice he's blocked 1500 damage. He's blocked 3 shots, but only because he's hull down, right? And then you can see people have tried to shoot his cupola, and it's not an easy shot. He's made it a hard shot for them, and this is kind of what the tank wants to do. It wants to sit here, aim at cupolas, be hull down, and then poke, and then shoot, and then pull back. But you know, if you like, you don't do that. If this is like the kind of the best case scenario for this tank, and look at this, he's looking for the little side of the hull, and he gets it. If you let the 780 sit and aim for weak spots, it will find the weak spots, right? And so that's the one thing why I wanted to show this replay is there's a lot of the good things and a lot of the bad things. Like the game itself, this match is just kind of so-so, right? It's Lord Fowl does a really good job. But mainly the reason I wanted to show this is because it shows the good stuff and the bad stuff about the tank. What it can do is be hull down, and it can peg weak spots like you're seeing now. It can do those things. And you'll see some of the bad stuff later on, right? You saw some of the speed before. You'll see some more, and anyways, you can see right now he's blocked a bunch of damage because he's doing this. Let's see if we can find a shot. There's the upper, just above the gun, is a weak spot in the 60 TP, I believe. But the 60 TP is trying to be hull down, but he has a cupola, right? And it is going to take longer for a 60 TP to aim at and shoot the cupola of a 780 than it will take for a 780 to aim at and shoot the cupola of a 60 TP. So this is probably not a great spot for the 60 TP to be, honestly. This is probably not a good engagement. He probably should have kept around that corner so he could hide that weak cupola, and instead he did this. So we're just going to wait for him to make a mistake. And oh, somehow we missed. But again, see how tight the reticle is. When you're allowed to just sit and wait and aim in, this is what it can do. And we're just going to sit here and farm damage. And again, this is ricochet, but again, they don't always hit, right? You can't hit every single shot. But this is kind of the best case scenario for this tank. And it's not the most exciting gameplay yet, but just, you know, stay with me for a little bit here and we'll just see how it goes. Now we're just going to wait for this 60 TP to make a mistake. Again, I think he realizes now that he's made a boo-boo, because he can't really pull back. If he pulls back to try to get out and get out around the corner there, he's going to get slapped probably in the cupola. So he probably should have never even gone there. Somebody else goes, so we're going to go too, and so this is, here we go, where the CTTP is trying to aim, so we juke, and we're trying to use this and trying to side scrape, and look at it, as soon as we get out from hull down, we take a shot in the side and aim at the cupola, and we get it, right? But you can see, now, we got 3,000 block damage, but as soon as we get out and we give somebody a side armor, or try to side scrape or run from that dead tank, we start not blocking damage. And look at the speed is just okay. Like, I wouldn't call this a fast tank. And look at it again. I mean, that was the side. He had the side of our tank, so we don't expect to block that. I don't think anything else would have blocked it either. And surprise mouse. But we're gonna throw it in. But now, okay, so now we're trying to be hull down and trying to like side scrape around this corner. And you're seeing like oh, see now. Again, the reticle was pretty big. If Lordfowl would have hit like the lower plate, the inside the tracks, he might have done okay. Or if he'd hit the side of the hull, that probably would have worked. But right now, we're basically like, he's kind of screwed. If this mouse, like, luckily we have people behind us, so that mouse couldn't just push in. But if he had, we would be screwed because you cannot side scrape in this thing, right? And you notice as soon as Lordfowl got out from behind his cover, and we stopped being able to be hull down, people just started chewing him up, and that's my experience too. My experience in this tank is if you're not hull down, you're doing it wrong in this tank, because there's not really anything else that you can do, right? And so now here, even with the turbo and everything else, pay attention, we're only doing 30. We're out of town, we're on the road, which I think is either medium or hard terrain, and we're doing 30. And look at how the gun does bloom out a little bit. Like when you're driving, there's not a lot of snapshotting happening. You kind of need to sit and post up. It's almost like a tank destroyer in the way that you need to sit and post up. You can make the long shots, but you really got to let it aim in, and you can't be snapping shots on the move. This is not gonna, it's not gonna work. And so now we're basically just gonna try to clean up some damage. And again, pay attention to the speed. We're gonna go down this hill, and finally we're gonna cross these little the little spikes here, right? But we're gonna try to see if we can get another shot on this bad chat, clean up one more shot of damage. We have 5 kills and 5,400 damage so far, so it's a solid game. But again, here we are. We're going 42 kilometers an hour on open terrain, and now we're going to go down this hill a little bit, and that gets us to 50, 47, 50 or so, and we turn. But you're seeing, even with the turbo, this is what I wanted to point out, even with the turbo, once you balance out to regular, like, all right, so no, we don't. You really have to post up, right? You can't just snap shots off. Even with the turbo around regular terrain like this, we're doing 40 for the most part. Like, this is what I'm trying to say. It's like people look at the top speed and they think they can make this thing a fast tank, and you really can't. But I will say the gun is great if you're willing to let the gun aim in. It's not going to snap shots in. It's not. It's kind of snipey in that it's more of like a heavy / tank destroyer hybrid in a way, I suppose. Kind of, I guess, sort of like a, what is that, the 268 V5 in a way. That's kind of the same, similar thing, support heavy. All right, so at the end of the game, Lord Fall ended up taking home 5 kills, 6,000 damage. He had 3,000 blocked, but all that was when he was hull down, remember? As soon as he got up from hull down, he didn't block anything. 223 spotting, I guess, and that gave him an ace tanker. I have a feeling the ace requirements are going to go up or down, or they're going to do something. This is a new tank, so things are going to change. But that got him 1,321 base XP. Again, the game was kind of one-sided, right? This was not a close game. This is not the kind of game I would normally feature, but again, it shows the tank, and that's what we're interested in. And also because he was shooting a lot of premium, almost exclusively premium, and not every one of those hit and penned, he did cost himself 74,000 credits. I will say, I think that he probably didn't need to shoot that much premium. The only shot in here that he penned that probably wouldn't have penned if he wasn't shooting, if he was shooting standard rounds. Did I say that right? The only shot in there that he needed premium rounds to pen was probably the side of the 60 TP, right? The side when he was side scraping and you could shoot the little fighting compartment part. That part probably needed to be premium, but everything else, he shot cupolas and lower plates and things, and I think he probably could have got along just fine with standard rounds. So, you know, it is what it is. But anyways, that is the game. That's the tank. Do I think the tank is good? It's okay. I think that it's probably shouldn't exist in the form that it's in, just only because they're basically sold a tier 10. So this is finally how that goes. They're finally selling tier 10s, right? They kind of did that with the T22. They kind of did that with the 268 V5, which I guess is a little bit different because you needed free XP. But this is like a trend that I don't like seeing personally, because you were supposed to only be able to get to tier 10 if you grind it out, right? If you were supposed to grind and play the game, now you can just throw your wallet at the screen. So what does that mean for the future of the game? I don't know. I'm not really a big fan of what I see. I hope that they kind of right the ship and don't do crap like this on a regular basis. But in any case, it looks like the tank can be decent, but also is not, it's definitely not overpowered. And I think I would most of the time rather be in something else when I'm playing in this tank. So I don't think it's going to break games, so that's at least okay. But anyways, that's it for me, and we'll see you in the next one, guys. Thanks.